Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make tiny improvements to your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I'm so excited to talk about the Bright Balloon Business Planner, which is a product that I just launched last week on Instagram. And today I'm talking about what it is, why I came up with it, how it can help you, how I plan to use it in my business, and what you can expect to find inside. So in the show notes, wherever you're listening, you can find the link to check out the planner. It's available on Amazon in hard copy and also as a digital download. I will warn you, though, that if you do the digital download and you want to print at home, it is 85 pages, so it's going to be a lot to print. So this is not meant to be like a digital resource. This is definitely something that you want a hard copy of. So you can either order the hard copy from Amazon or you can print your own hard copy at home. All right, and with that, let's talk about what it is, where it came from. So basically, last year, I set some big goals for myself and I accomplished those goals. I was really excited that I accomplished some really big financial goals, but almost the moment that I accomplished the goal, I felt myself kind of just start becoming aimless. I had really nothing to focus on. And then I started suffering from what Nicole and I like to call shiny object syndrome. When I don't have a goal, I'm just attracted to whatever the new shiny thing is. And all of a sudden, I'm just bouncing around from idea to idea. And I don't really have any target or any clear mission. So it became very clear that I am very goal-oriented. I need to have written goals. And going into this year, I got excited about setting some of those goals actually in November at Balloon Boss Summit. I just got really fired up for 2022. And I came home and I was ready to kind of like sit down and sort out everything I had on my mind and set those goals. And I realized I didn't really have a strategy to actually like write down and keep track of whatever my goals are going to be for the next year. So that led me to searching online for business planners. I was like, surely something has to exist. And there are millions of planners out there. But the thing that I found, the one thing that I found consistent amongst almost all of them is that they were really overwhelming. They included everything. And I think that is because educators and, designers, they want to over deliver. They want to provide everything for their customers. But for me, I found that really overwhelming. So for example, one of them had like everything from business goals to my financial reports, to how much water I drank in a day, to my shopping lists, to my email password logs. Like, it was too much. It was trying to be like a life planner, and that's not what I need. I need a business planner, especially because most of how I run my business is digital and it's automated. So to then go back and write all of that down in a binder is actually costing me time. It's not saving me time. So I wanted something really simple that was purely for my business and purely based on goal setting and tracking. So the first thing that I wanted to find was goals. The second thing I wanted to find was some sort of like spreadsheet or way to track those goals. Because for me, it doesn't work out if I just write down a goal and then I hope that I hit it. Like, there are actual steps to take in order to hit your goal. And there's actually like measurable things along the way. So for example, if my goal is to increase my mailing list by 500 names, I don't want to just set that goal in January and then cross my fingers and then look and see if I did it in December. Like, I want to see some major, stats along the way, seeing, what month did I increase those followers or those subscribers, and what was I doing at the time, and what worked and what didn't. So the tracking component was also lacking from most of these binders. So anyway, long story short, I decided to just make something for myself, and then about halfway through decided I needed to make it available to everyone who wanted it. So that is where we are today. The planner exists, and a lot of people have ordered the hard copy already. It is print on demand, so there is a bit of a delay, like a week or so delay from the time you order to the time that you actually get it. So I haven't even gotten my hard copy yet. I have my digital, but I'm excited to get my hard copy from Amazon. And I made it, cute. I feel like it has a very like 90s Lisa Frank vibe to it. So again, I designed this for myself, something that I would be happy to use, and I'm excited if other people want to use it as well. So now let's talk about what's inside. The first thing is obviously the goals, the goal tracking. So this is not meant to be overwhelming. And for me, the idea of setting a big goal and then breaking it down and scheduling out day by day for an entire year, it was just like an impossibly overwhelming task. So instead, I set it up that it's 4 big goals, and then you're going to break those goals down into 3 mini goals, and then each of those little mini goals are going to have action steps. So those are the things that you're actually going to do. And then in terms of scheduling those out, even that is really simple, and it's basically like month by month. So think of this more as like a monthly planner, not your daily agenda, not your like hour by hour what you're going to do every single day. So for my months, I have them separated out into 4-week chunks, and I am just going to schedule my action items into those weekly chunks. That way, if life happens or if it ends up being an insanely busy week, it's no big deal to kind of just shift around some of those action steps. So there are some worksheets on how to set your goals and what those mini goals should be and what those action steps are going to be. So for example, if my goal is to get 100 reviews on Google, which that actually is one of my goals, I want to get more Google reviews. First, I need to figure out what are those actual steps? So one of those is going to be to automate that process and figure out how to ask people for reviews in a way that's not going to pain me. So one of those one of the big goals is going to be get the Google reviews. One of the mini goals is going to be automating the process. And then under that, the action steps are going to be, sitting down with Nicole, who helps me with all my digital stuff, and figuring out what that template looks like in 17 Hats and when it goes out, and do we follow up, and do we have the link to my Google reviews so that it's just a click, figuring out all of the nitty gritty and then scheduling those out in my monthly planner. So you're going to do that for 4 goals. And I set 4 because 1 seems like putting all of your eggs in one basket, and more than 4 is just going to be too much. Also, if you don't set enough goals, if you are like me and you actually accomplish the goals early, then you're just kind of floating around aimlessly. So I think 4 is a sweet spot. And that way, if you do 1 at a time, you can move on to the next goal, or maybe you're going to do all 4 simultaneously. So again, let's use the Google review one as an example. I'm not going to hit 100 Google reviews in the first month. I'm not at risk of accomplishing that goal. But also, I don't want that to be the only thing that I'm working towards. I have other business goals as well. So I am going to work through 4 goals kind of at the same time. Sometimes some will be priority and others will take a back seat, but I think that will keep it interesting for me. I don't want to be so laser focused on something that I burn out. All right, the other thing that I mentioned, but I couldn't find really in any planner, certainly not customized to what we do, was the idea of tracking my numbers monthly. So for example, the Google reviews. Again, if I am looking to get 100 Google reviews, that would be cool to know how many I have right now, how many I have at the end of every month, and then how many I have at the end of the year. Otherwise, like I said, if I don't know how many I even have, and then I just kind of cross my fingers and hope that I have 100 at the end of the year, that's not going to go well. That's not going to help me out. So instead, I want to start tracking those numbers. So every single month, I'm going to flip to my tracking section and I'm going to write down how many reviews I have. I'm also going to write down how many Instagram followers I have, how much I did in sales, how many subscribers I have on my email list. I'm going to write down all of these numbers, and don't worry, I've already put the categories in there for you. It's already in a big spreadsheet. All you have to do is write down your numbers at the end of each month. That way it's like a log, because maybe next year you're going to have a goal that's you weren't even tracking this year, but now you already have a year's worth of data to look back on. So don't feel bad if you're tracking your Instagram followers and you have no intention of growing those followers. That's fine. It's still good to know and to have that data. So that's another chunk that I think is really cool and really important in the planner. Just the idea of tracking your numbers. And they don't even have to correspond to one of your goals. It's just good to know. And I guarantee you that when you're filling out your year in review, you're not going to know all those numbers. I don't know my numbers. If you asked me, how much I paid myself this year, I would have to go and look that up. I don't actually know. I would have to go back and look at my numbers and try to figure out how to piece that together. And then maybe I would have a close estimate to what I paid myself, versus next year, I'll be able to flip to that page, look at that number, and I'll be able to tell you exactly dollar for dollar what I paid myself. I'm sure there's people listening that you don't know what you did in sales this year, or what you did in what your overhead was, or what you paid your employees, or how many repeat customers you had, or how many Google reviews you had. You can't know all that information unless you write it down somewhere, unless you're tracking it. So that is what the planner is meant to do. And that's what I'm really excited about for me personally. I'm excited to really look at my numbers and track my stats really closely this year, because a lot of times you don't hit your goal. And that stinks, but it's worse if you have no idea why. It's much better if you can look back and say oh, you know what? We didn't hit this goal because we weren't advertising. We didn't hit this goal because we didn't ask anybody to review us. We didn't hit this sales goal because we weren't really trying to generate more income. We were just doing what we've always done. So having those numbers to look back at, for me, I think is going to unlock the next level of my business, if that makes sense. I'm excited to just be obsessed with numbers this year. Actually, the first book that I'm going to read this year is called Traction, and it's all about tracking your numbers. So I'm going to do a book review on that in a month or so. All right, speaking of books, let's talk about other resources, things that you're going to find in the planner. One of those very simple things is a list of books that I am going to be reviewing and reading this year. So you'll hear more about those on the podcast. But if you want to get a head start, they are listed in the back section of resources. There's also a planning page for blog posts. So if you want to boost your SEO, blogging is a good way to do that. And sometimes in the middle of the year is just you can't even wrap your head around coming up with blog ideas. So if you have time now, you can enter in what those blog posts are going to be about, what those keywords are going to be, and kind of start pre-planning when you're going to schedule out time to actually create those blog posts. Other content in there is some sales ideas. So at the beginning of each month, I listed out a few ideas to start thinking ahead for. So in January, you might want to start thinking about your Valentine's Day promotion, or towards the middle of the academic year, that's a good time to start looking forward to May, June, and July, and figuring out are you going to target graduations? Do you have any customers that have done graduation events before, like commencement ceremonies? You want to give them enough notice and enough time that you are actually promoting to them to make their jobs easier. So if they're the person in charge of booking the balloons, get to them early and take that off their to-do list and also secure that job. Another cool thing that's in there that I love, I've done 2 episodes about the calendar audit. So this is a place where you can actually write down your recurring jobs, your annual jobs, and you can see your whole year at a glance. So how cool would that be if you had to book hardly any new jobs this year, and instead you were just going after your repeat business? And a lot of times we fail at that because we just get too busy and it kind of comes and goes and we forget. Versus if you write it all out ahead of time, and also this year start tracking what maybe potential repeat jobs could come next year, that's not going to be so overwhelming, because you can look and see okay, I don't really have any jobs for March right now, but typically I have 3 corporate events. So I'm actually going to reach out to those people and get a head start on scheduling out my annual events. So there is an annual calendar audit and then a year at a glance. There's a lot of annual sales charts so that you can look at your profit and loss for the year. Oh, one of the things that I made, again, totally for myself because I'm terrible at this, is your overhead. So those annual bills that you pay maybe once or twice a year, those are the ones that I always lose track of. So my insurance, for example, my liability insurance, that is due one time a year. And I feel every time it comes up, it's a total surprise and I forget. And I have no idea how much I pay or when it's due. Half the time I even forget what business name it's under. Is it under my LLC or is it doing business as? And it's just a pain in the butt. So some of those annual expenses, you can list out, and as they pop up, just write them down in your list of annual expenses, when they are, how much you usually pay. And then just like the calendar audit, you can start scheduling out all of those annual expenses. Maybe you'll notice that like all of your annual expenses are due in January, and that's a really hard time to pay a year's worth of overhead. So maybe you want to talk to some of your vendors and pay half a year and then reset that annual bill to come up at a time where, you have a little bit more cash flow. So like maybe it would make more sense if your business insurance was due in July, or maybe you just don't want your car insurance payment to hit the same month as when you pay your bookkeeper. So things like that, things that if you just kind of take the time to start slowly scheduling out some of these things that happen once or twice a year, it'll give you, and again, by you, I mean me, I've made this whole resource just for myself to get organized. It will give you a better snapshot, a better big picture idea of when some of those expenses fall. Just like your events, it'll give you an idea of when your big events fall. Again, attached to the calendar audit, just kind of circling back there, there's a page that I am really excited to fill out for my own business. And that is listing out your top 10 events of the year and figuring out how much money came from those events, and then making those like really, really top priorities to get those events again this year. Because I was thinking about it last year, like I had some pretty big ticket jobs this year. I wouldn't be surprised if like 25% of my total sales came from like maybe 10 jobs, maybe. So I would be a fool not to know what those jobs were and who those contacts were and exactly when I'm going to reach out to them to try to secure that repeat business. So that is another page that's in there that I'm really excited to use. So those are kind of the three chunks. There is the planner section, there is the tracking section, and then there's those other resources that are going to help you get just kind of a big picture idea of how your business ebbs and flows, when your events are, when your bills are due, and kind of helps you plan a little bit more long term. And I am really excited that so far people have been also excited about this resource. I feel like there was kind of a gap in our industry, something that was meant for balloon people or even service providers in general. And again, I made this for myself. I hope you also find it valuable. And I already am working on next year's, believe it or not. So I made this one in about a month, and I already have so many more ideas of what to include. Again, not more stuff. I don't want this to become overwhelming, but more resources in terms of like, instead of 2 or 3 ideas for sales at the beginning of every month, what if there is a list of like 20 things that you could be pushing each month? Or what if some of those things were already on the calendar for you? So I have a ton of ideas. If you have ideas, if you start using this and you have ideas, please don't be shy to tell me what those are. I really want this to be a resource for everybody, because again, at the end of the day, you still have to do the work. I still have to do the work. But I think if we have this awesome resource that, is perfectly geared towards the balloon industry, it will help all of us succeed. And at the very least, it'll help us all feel confident and have an understanding of what we're even trying to accomplish. I think the number one problem in goal setting is not that you don't accomplish your goal, it's that you forget what your goals even were. Like most people, if you ask them mid-February what their business goals are, they'll have no idea. So I hope that you join me in being the few people that really are laser focused on those goals and work towards them all year long in a really painless way due to number tracking and having all of your information in one spot. So check out the resources link in the show notes, and please send me your feedback. Also, please tag me if you do get your binder or you print it out. Please tag me on Instagram at The Bright Balloon. I want to see how everyone is using these. I'm really excited. All right, I will talk to you next week. That wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I tried to keep it bright and light in a few minutes or less. I'll talk to you next time. For more information about any of the resources or courses mentioned in today's show, please head to thebrightballoon.com or check the show notes wherever you're listening.